spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, I like the waves, we'll rise up, in spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Good evening. Welcome to our webinar, Building Healthy Communities, a focus on resilience. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a nuestro webinar, Creando Comunidades Saludables, un enfoque en la resiliencia. Si requiere interpretación al español, en la parte posterior de su pantalla, encontrará un botón que dice Interpretación. Favor de presionar ahí y escoger español y escuchará el audio en español. If you are requiring Spanish interpretation, at the bottom of your screen, you will see a button that says interpretation, and go ahead and click on Spanish and you will hear the Spanish audio.
Good evening. My name is Priscilla Strawn, and it's my privilege to serve as the Chief Academic Officer for Adams 12 and to welcome you to tonight's presentation, Building Healthy Communities, a Focus on Resilience. Tonight is the first of a series of community events that we will host focusing on the social emotional wellness of our students and tools and resources for you as parents. You will find that much of what we discuss tonight is also relevant for all of us as adults. We all know that we are living in unprecedented times, in the midst of a pandemic, and at a time where there is extreme social unrest and an increased cry for social justice. Our world has changed, and the manner in which we relate and interact with one another, as well as how we support our students' academic and social and emotional needs, must adapt and change. Building resilience in our children, as well as increasing our own resilience, will be key to a successful and productive year. In tonight's presentation, we will be grounding ourselves in the potential impacts that COVID-19 may have played in our lives and the lives of our students. We use the words potential and may have intentionally, as it is extremely important to acknowledge that as human beings, we have all experienced the impact of COVID-19 differently. Our individual reactions to a crisis are very personal and are experienced and demonstrated based on our individual trauma and grief responses. Can you take us to the next slide, please? We will review the common emotional responses and the fluctuating impact they may have on us and our students. And we will explore ways to collectively establish emotional safety, manage stress, and tap into positive coping strategies that build our individual resilience. We'd also like to acknowledge that our Board of Education accepted the superintendent's recommended learning plan for the 2020-21 school year, indicating that all schools will begin with remote learning on August 27th. While we appreciate that there are many questions surrounding this decision, this event tonight will be focused on supporting our community from a social emotional and mental health wellness lens. We want to thank you for your time this evening and for your continued partnership with us. Providing an environment where students feel connected, supported, and empowered to express themselves is a key component to their ability to access instruction and content that our teachers provide. Students must feel safe in order to engage in learning. Providing them with the skills, knowledge, and tools that support and build resilience is a key component to building healthy communities and ensuring that all of our students continue to grow academically and emotionally. Next slide, please. I'd also like to do a couple housekeeping pieces with you. First of all, so that you know that tonight's presentation is recorded and will be available on your YouTube channel, that there will be resources and links available for you to access after the presentation. Our chat feature is unavailable tonight, and our participants are muted based on the number of you that are accessing us tonight and to ensure that we have time to get through the presentation. Again, we want to thank you for your attendance this evening. Next slide. I'd also like to welcome our presenters this evening. We'll have an opportunity to hear a few words from our superintendent, Chris Godowski, and then our main presenters are Erin Marquez and Sarah Hunter. Both of these ladies are prevention and crisis recovery coordinators for the district. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce our superintendent, Mr. Chris Godowski.
Thank you much, Priscilla. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to spend time with you talking about ways we can help one another do the most difficult job that each one of us likely have. I'm assuming that those joining us tonight are largely, if not exclusively, parents. And regardless of what you do to make a living and what your day or night job may be, I would submit that the most difficult job that any of us have is this one of being parent. I find it challenging. I've gone down this path 4 times. I'm in the midst of that journey. Obviously, I think it's a lifelong challenge to be a parent. It doesn't end simply when your student graduates high school. And whether I'm working through issues with my 27-year-old or my 12-year-old or the children in between of my family, I find often this is the place of the greatest insecurity for me in my life. I often am trying to judge where my kids are at in their emotional state and their sense of well-being. And there's so much insecurity that comes with trying to determine, am I underreacting to some situation that's of great challenge in their life? Am I overreacting to something that they're presenting? How do I really know how to judge this? How do I know if the interventions and the words of support and the strategies that I'm applying are the right ones that they need and are making a difference? I think so often we struggle with those issues. And right now, even before the pandemic, I know over the last several years, as I've met with students, especially high school students, where we have some pretty in-depth and mature conversations about life, our students have many big challenges that were in front of them even before COVID. As I talked to them, there's tremendous stress, greater than I think it was a generation ago, about academics and the pressure to take all of these courses to either prepare themselves for college or earn credit or get ready for the workforce to earn a certification in CTE. So a lot of stress about doing that, doing a lot of work that's rigorous and doing it really well. Relationship stress, not only with peers or with potential romantic partners, but also relationship within families. Families are struggling in the circumstances even before COVID to pay bills, to make a living, to have the kind of lifestyle that they're seeking. And so I hear from our students a lot of stress in the relationship space, a lot of fear and worry about our world and which direction it's going in, and a lot of concern about the dialogue and sometimes the conflict that goes on between adults and our political spaces about what direction should we all head in the future. So our students are in a place of worry and anxiety and stress. That's now obviously in a much more heightened space given COVID and the isolation that many of our students have had, the uncertainty that it's brought about. How do I go about school? How do I stay connected with my friends? How do I know I'm engaging? Am I learning in the right way? Lots of additional stress that have come from that. And I think the good news about tonight's presentation and dialogue and the work we hope to do together over the course of the year is we can travel this journey together of saying, as students, we know that they're in a very difficult and even greater spot of worry and stress and uncertainty. And as parents, the uncertainty that we've always had about, are we underreacting, overreacting, saying the right thing, doing the right thing? All those things are at their greatest and most intense level, I would submit, to my lifetime. And yet if we can spend time together tonight and over the course of the months ahead and look into things like psychological first aid strategies and supports, I believe we'll emerge much more confident, more relaxed, more hopeful about how we can support the needs of our kids. So I'm glad that you're here tonight. I've looked at this presentation. There's lots of outstanding material ahead. And with that, let's get into the material. I'm going to pass it on now to Ms. Erin Marquez.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Marquez, and I'm one of the Prevention and Crisis Recovery Coordinators here in Adams 12. I've served as a mental health provider here in Adams 12 for the past 11 years, and I grew up in this community, and I am an alum of this district. I began working in this district when I was just 16 years old in the before and after school program, and that is where I met my lovely husband, which you see pictured here on this slide. We share a 6-year-old son who will start first grade in the fall. And as many of you, I too have concern of how this pandemic will impact my son and my family. There is no doubt that these times have been trying. And I also know that when we come together as a community and as a society to support one another, that we can and we will thrive and overcome this hardship that has been laid before us. And I'm excited to be talking about all of the different ways we can empower ourselves and our students by leveraging our strengths and encouraging the application of these coping skills. Next slide. I also recognize that this time has and continues to be a time of unrest and uncertainty for many, from civil to social to medical and economic. This time has proven to be challenging in multiple ways. This evening, we'll be focusing on how to create emotional safety for our students as well as yourselves. We are going to be talking about ways we can support your students at school, as well as ways that you will be able to support your students at home through the lens of the psychological first aid model. We're sharing the psychological first aid framework for a couple of different reasons. One, psychological first aid in the framework is what our administration and mental health providers apply when supporting students in crisis. And two, this is the model our district will use to engage in supporting themselves, one another, and their students as we enter this new school year. As I stated before, much of what we are going to talk about is grounded in the psychological first aid model. These strategies taught for recovery through crisis are not only good for students, but they are also good for the adults as well. Psychological first aid is an evidence-informed approach that is built on the concept of human resilience. Psychological first aid aims to do two things. One, reduce stress symptoms, and two, assist healthy recovery. Before we talk about the different ways that we can support students and staff, it is essential to ground ourselves in our current reality. As many of you may be aware, emotional distress is not always as visible as physical injury, but it is just as painful and debilitating. After going through a life-altering experience, it is common to be affected emotionally. Everybody who experiences a collective crisis is impacted in some form, and reactions manifest differently at different periods of time during and after an incident. As you can see, the pandemic is at the center of a multitude of secondary losses. During this time, many of us have experienced loss in some form of another. Whether this was the loss of the rite of passage, such as the loss of watching your student experience prom, or seeing your student off to their last day of school, or watching your student graduate alongside all of your family and friends. We've also experienced loss through traditional connection with family and friends, such as your kids being able to go over to sleepovers or to grandparents for the summer, or maybe go to celebrations such as graduation parties or birthday parties. The ongoing pandemic can lead to a host of emotions such as fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, uncertainty, and tension. The prolonged experience and exposure to these feelings for society as a whole results in what is called collective trauma. The possibility and fear of contracting and spreading a life-threatening illness has resulted in many changes from the way we once knew our lives to be. Our inability to walk freely throughout our community, to join our friends at a movie, or to see our favorite musician or sports team has led to grieving what we once knew, and also leads to anticipatory grief of what losses are still to come. These potential losses impact us all in very different ways, and our feelings vary from day to day. our team came across this picture, we thought it was a perfect representation of the world's current reality, a representation of all the feelings that we are experiencing and will continue to experience. We recognize that this time has not been all negative for everyone, and that this is an ebb and flow of feelings from day to day. I know for my own family, when my 6-year-old son had learned that he would be staying home for the remainder of the school year last year, he had thought he won the lottery. I get to stay home with my family and get to learn at my own schedule, and thought this was just the best thing that had happened. But as time went on and his teacher was dropping off books or would come over to the house and wave through the window, he was really just so disappointed that he couldn't go out and connect with her in the same ways. He was disappointed that he wasn't able to go and say goodbye to his friends at the end of the school year. And as time goes on and there's more talk about vaccines, my son becomes more anxious and fearful because of the possibility of having to get another shot. Although we may be in the same storm, we are not in the same boat. Individuals and systems of individuals have and will experience this pandemic across the continuum based on their own past experiences, their predispositions, and their current realities. And the pendulum of their experiences may also be swinging from one day to another, with the person presenting as hopeful and energized one day and fearful and anxious the next. Often, our youth look to adults to know how they should feel and react in a situation. They see adults as a barometer for how they should respond. This is true in the classroom as well as at home. This is why it is so important that we model the way for our kids, and why the strategies that we're recommending for you this evening are also good practice for yourself as well. When you stay calm, your children are more likely to stay calm as well. Children's behavior often reflects that of the adults around them. How you act during and following a crisis can influence how your students will react. We also recognize that we are all human and know that we don't get it perfect every time. I sure know that I have not. And during these times, I encourage you to give yourself grace, to name it and apologize if that's appropriate, and then think about next time what you could do differently, because there'll be plenty of opportunities to try it again. It's also important to model your emotions and how you can respond in a healthy way during these stressful times. At times, it's helpful to share how you're feeling and why you might be feeling that way. You might consider talking to your youth about some of the ways you plan to positively support yourself when managing these stressful times, such as, I'm really feeling anxious about returning back to work today, or I'm really disappointed that we weren't able to take that planned trip that we had been planning for a long time, or I'm really nervous about leading the Zoom meeting. And then you might talk about some ways that you would manage or deal with those feelings. I think I'm just going to go take a walk right now, or I'm going to give my friend a call, or maybe I just need to get a glass of water and walk outside for a few minutes, or go read an inspirational quote. There's lots of different ways to support yourself and be able to model that for your students. For us to do this work, it is essential that we focus on ourselves first. In supporting our students, it is important to understand the relationship between the brain and the body. Understanding how our brain works is a core component in helping us understand our own emotions and reactions in order to effectively handle the challenges ahead. It can also provide a foundation for how to support you in understanding others' feelings and emotions. Our brain is not static, but rather continues to develop, heal, rewire, and grow throughout our lives. As social and emotional learning became a central focus here in Adams 12, all of our administrators, mental health providers, counselors, and social emotional learning specialists have been educated in this brain state model so that they are better equipped to understand and support our students' social and emotional development. This slide is really a simple way to think about how our brains work. Our brains process information from the bottom up and the inside out. There is a hierarchy of needs within the brain that need to be met. This means that our brain always starts by asking, am I safe? Our brain scans information coming in to determine whether this threat, if the threat is a danger. And if the brain determines there is a threat and danger, then the fight, flight, and freeze response is activated. This part of the brain is activated when a fear emerges as a result of a sudden, unfamiliar, out of our control, and potentially deadly threat arrives, such as a bear or the novel coronavirus. Our brain tells us we need to either fight off the threat, we need to run away from that threat, or our brain sends us into autopilot and we just check out in order to try to protect ourselves. This is why establishing safety comes first. When we are safe, we can access the other parts of our brain that allow us to name and manage our emotions, as well as apply logic. Once we feel safe, our brain asks, am I loved? This is why comfort and connection is so important in supporting yourself and others through a crisis, and why it is two components of our psychological first aid model. Once comfort and connection is established, then our brains ask, what can I learn? Here, we can apply problem solving and rational thinking to integrate these three states of our brain. I'd like to offer an example from my own personal life. When the coronavirus had started to spread throughout the United States in the past spring, I get a phone call from my dad, and he tells me, hey, Erin, you need to get to the store right away. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Are we running out of food? What is it, Dad? And my dad's not usually an alarmist. And he tells me, you need to get to the store and buy toilet paper. You're running out of toilet paper. You need to get to the store. And so he's my father. And so I want to listen to him. So immediately I start to panic and I drop down to the stem of my brain. And so here I am. I decide flight is what I'm going to do. I grab my keys and I run out the door, and I am now the toilet paper crusader. I'm on a mission to go find all the toilet paper I can possibly find. So after about 3 stores of not finding toilet paper, which further led to me being in panic, so that everybody else clearly had got the message that toilet paper is a commodity that we might run out of. I was physically feeling ill. And so I found myself in an aisle, and I started to take some deep breaths and notice how I'm feeling, and my heart's beating fast. And so I'm using some self-talk, and I finally get myself to a place where I'm not feeling physically ill anymore, but I'm still nervous, and I'm worried that, hey, I might not have toilet paper. And what if there's other things that I'm not aware of that we might run out of? And so I decide I'm going to call my husband. He's somebody that's safe and I can rely on. And so I give him a call and I tell him, all that I've just been through. And he pauses for a moment, and then he says, Erin, we just bought toilet paper at Costco. There's only 3 of us that live in the home. So again, I tell him, but we could run out. What if we run out? I don't know what to do. And he said, well, then we would ask our neighbors, or we would ask some family, or we would get really creative. So he was able to ease my emotions so I could shift back up to that executive functioning part of my brain. So I'm standing there in the aisle, and then I think, what am I thinking? And then it dawns on me, I wasn't thinking at all. I was operating in the safety part of my brain and the emotional part of my brain. Needless to say, I hopped in the car, and we have been fine with our toilet paper situation since. But I share this story with you for a couple of reasons. One, so that you might recognize where you're functioning or your student might be functioning in their brain and know how to support them. And 2, so that you can help your student build awareness around where they're functioning within their brain and help them apply strategies to better regulate themselves. We want to take a moment to normalize all of these typical emotions and responses, given all that we've been through. When we can ground ourselves in what is normal human emotion and condition, we feel more equipped to help support ourselves and those that we care about. And again, there are situations and experiences during this time that are not all negative. And it's important to draw attention to those experiences as well, such as the flexibility within our days or more time for leisure. Being able to identify these experiences and these positive emotions that result from these experiences help us foster mental well-being as well. We can better help our students and ourselves manage and regulate our emotions with the integration of daily practices that enhance well-being and overall functioning, such as self-care. Self-care is a practice that is applied through consistent, intentional, and frequent engagement in acts that decrease our stress levels and increase our overall wellness. When discussing self-care, there are two elements I feel are very important to highlight. One, self-care does not equal self-indulgence. Oftentimes, when a person hears the term self-care, they think of going to get a massage or maybe eating some chocolate or going on a vacation or taking a bubble bath. And although these activities bring us joy and comfort, they are not truly the definition of what self-care is. Self-care happens within a hierarchy, starting with your basic needs. So ensuring that you're drinking enough water, you're getting enough sleep, you're eating regular meals can make a world of a difference with your mental health. Also, self-care is not intended to happen just once in a while, but rather regularly and daily. And the acts can range in duration. It doesn't have to be a big chunk of your day that's taken out. It could be stopping and finding thankfulness for 3 things that's in the room with you, or reading an inspirational quote, or repeating your mantra, drinking a glass of tea. It could be listening to your favorite song or taking a walk. Ensuring that you're providing yourself with the necessities so that you can continue to be resilient in the face of these hardships is essential. These 6 categories of practice really support emotional regulation and mental wellness. Thinking about these categories and strategies in developing a self-care practice can be very helpful. These practices are also integrated into the 5 psychological first aid strategies, which is what Sarah is going to discuss next. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Hello, my name is Sarah Hunter, and I am also a Prevention and Crisis Recovery Coordinator here in Adams 12. This is going to be the beginning of my 20th year in education, all within Adams 12. Prior to this role, I was a school social worker in the district and a school-based therapist. This is my family, my husband John and our 2 children that are 12 and 14. And like all of you, we have had many moments of uncertainty. We have had wonderful moments of togetherness and moments of frustration and distress. Erin and I work in the district to guide and support through crisis and recovery. We work to help prepare kids' social emotional learning skills and utilize coping strategies to support in recovery from crisis. Psychological first aid is helping to heal emotional wounds. If you think about a first aid kit for physical injuries, you would prepare with Band-Aids, tweezers, and splints. You would have those available for when your kids get hurt or someone falls, and you're ready to help your child. Well, psychological first aid supports our emotions with strategies to get us through the tough stuff, the emotional stuff. Psychological first aid principles are used throughout the district to support in crisis situations. We believe that is not what happens to kids or adults, it's how we respond. It is how we react, show up, and believe in them. We can change their recovery and their response by being responsive to their individual needs. There is so much out of our control right now. We can't control what's happening to us. We can't always control the surrounding environment, but what we can control is our response. Giving kids coping strategies to get through the storm, whatever boat we are in. Psychological first aid helps us with strategies during, before, and after a crisis situation. It is designed to reduce the occurrence of post-traumatic stress after a crisis. We will explore the 5 strategies of psychological first aid: safety, comfort, connection, success, and hope. These skills are not linear. They all work together, and each might be a primary focus at a different time. Students' physical and emotional safety sets the stage for all recovery efforts during, following a crisis situation or a life-changing event. This is why we put it at the center of the 5 elements. Children feel safe when they think they are safe, not when we think they're safe. A perceived threat has the same impact on the body and brain as a real threat. Their beliefs are their reality. We need to help and guide them through it. During an event, such as a pandemic, crisis, or life-changing event, we want to make sure that everyone is as safe as possible. Let students know what adults are doing to keep them safe. Share with them what you know about the pandemic and other issues going on and why you're making the decisions you are making. As you learn, provide them with information about schools, teachers, their community, and what they're doing to support. Give accurate and up-to-date information. However, monitor and limit exposure to the media. Ask students what they've heard, debunk myths. If your child says something that you haven't heard before, maybe say, I haven't heard that. Let's do some research together. Clarify inaccurate reports and address fears and concerns from distressful information. Assure students that their reactions are normal. Sometimes current crisis or events can bring up past emotions. It can affect us all differently. A child may have reminders of what they have gone through before, and their behavior escalates. We want to discuss their reactions and help them with strategies to calm their bodies and their emotions. Understanding that they may have reminders from other experiences and how to handle them. This will help them return back to the problem-solving part of the brain. The second strategy we will talk about is comfort. The goal of comfort is to help students and staff reduce distress reactions through calming and distraction activities. After establishing safety, it's important to comfort and calm our children, teaching them skills to cope with emotions and talk about their emotions. It's like wrapping a blanket around your emotions and reassuring them that they're okay. Adults and children can become noticeably distressed during and following a life-changing event. The goal is to calm and regulate emotions so your child can make good decisions and problem solve what is happening, getting out of their fight or flight response. This goes for adults too. As Erin said, when adults are calm and regulated, we can help kids become calm and regulated. Think about a time when you guided your child through an emotional problem. You were calm, regulated, had an empathetic stance, you listened, they listened. It was a wonderful moment. As a parent, you were like, I got this, this is easy. Now, think of a time when you were frustrated with your child's emotion. Maybe they brought it up right before you have to leave for work and you couldn't be there to support, and maybe you minimized them and you dismissed them, and most likely you were not regulated at all and in the space to help. Your emotions were too high and you weren't ready to problem solve. They could have been the same issue, but because you weren't regulated and calm, you weren't able to be present and supportive. Teaching grounding techniques to stay present and calm can help, not only for kids, but for adults as well. One of the strategies we like to teach is the 5 senses. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And you would study the room that you're in and be grounded in that space. Deep breathing, like when Erin was worried about toilet paper, that's what the strategy that she chose to use. Muscle relaxation activities, there's all sorts of things you can Google on the internet, but they're really based in science and really helping your body to become regulated and calm and to be able to think about what your next steps should be. Other things that make people feel more calm are establishing routines and schedules. Rules are good too, but routines and schedules can really help families provide structure and teach kids what is happening and what is coming next. Some families need more structure than others, but establishing a daily agenda or routine for the day, either on a chalkboard or a piece of paper, can really help kids prepare for transitions. Maybe creating a time to check in with your child. It could be a quick thumbs up, thumbs down, or some sort of emotion regulation barometer, feeling happy, sad, mad, all of those things. Just finding ways to check in to see how they're emotionally doing can really help them with their comfort and calming. The next strategy is connection. The purpose of connection is to strengthen relationships and reestablish social support and activities. Connection during this time has been the hardest for many of us. When we look to support one another, we have barbecues, we go see live music, we're hugging each other, we're sending over food. We just want to be together. And many of these typical activities have really been redefined for us, which was really fun at first, right? Zoom parties with your friends from college and high school and happy hours online and trivia. And we were getting really creative. But then the COVID fatigue set in. That's a real thing. We're exhausted. We long for the normal times. We just want to, be back to where we were with our friends. Well, this is so common for adults. This is common for youth as well. They want to be with their friends. They want to be connecting just like us. We all want to be back to normal so we need to help them build those connections in other ways. So we want to assist our students to reach out to people in your school, community, reestablish social supports. We want to find ways to have stable connections. And sometimes kids will show us that they need connection in some different ways. Sometimes kids will act out and yell and have negative behaviors. And we'll think, well, they just want attention. And they'll say things and we'll think, should I just ignore that? Because when they were 2, that's what we did. But really, when kids are a little bit older and developmentally, what they're really saying is that they want attention. They want connection versus attention. And so that we need to find ways to really connect with our children and really find ways to connect with them individually. Excuse me. When we connect with our kids, it doesn't have to be this long and intense moment. It can be, a quick check-in before bed or a back and forth notebook asking questions about how their day was or what their interests are. Maybe a quick walk around the block with the dog. Or it could be a little more extended. I have a friend who has 3 kids and she chooses to do a date night monthly where she takes each child out for a date and they choose to go through a drive-through right now and get an ice cream cone from McDonald's or a Coke from Wendy's. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it's just their time to connect individually with each other. So finding ways to be creative right now is just where we need to go. As a district, we will be prioritizing how to support connections with teachers and families during this time. We will find safe and productive ways to support our students. This will be a priority for the first few weeks of school, where we can really find ways that kids can connect with each other, either virtually or maybe a few together in the pods. We are going to work this out so that teachers and students have those really fabulous connections as they always have. Next is success. Having success during a crisis is critical. It helps us to know that we can handle things. If we think we can, we can. When we are going through something tough, we can learn from it. During this time, we maybe have feelings of being overwhelmed, helpless, and out of control. Children and adults can lose their sense of competency to handle what happens to them, especially as it concerns all the tasks related to what's going on. In time, this can lead to a generalized belief that I can't do it. Think about a time when you just didn't know how you were going to get through something. Maybe it was a loss of a parent or a loss of a job, or just something that you have been working so hard on and you just didn't think you could find any more energy to get through it. We all have had these times. Promoting self-efficacy is the belief that you can succeed. It's the belief that you can do something. This can help students and adults overcome their experience of helplessness. Self-efficacy, or the belief that you can do it, can be built by these 5 strategies: pulling from past experiences, getting through other tough issues and drawing on those skills. So having past experience of getting through something and utilizing those skills for this experience can help you. Seeing others succeed at something can help you succeed and feel hopeful. sharing stories of kids using good coping skills or strategies, or watching the show Some Good News with John Krasinski. He really showed us all the things that could be possible during this time and made us think that, yeah, we could do those things too. How many of you had parades for birthdays and, you know, honked and made signs and all the things that they highlighted on that show? Getting positive coaching and feedback from parents and teachers, reminding you of the skills that you have and how to build on them. Imagining yourself accomplishing a goal can help you achieve that goal. Visualizing is used with many actors and athletes. Michael Jordan always talked about visualizing scoring baskets and winning and beating his teammates before every game. Reading emotions and how your body is responding and utilizing strategies to regulate your emotions, such as mindfulness and breathing exercises, can calm the brain to be able to be problem solving and in the learning space. Our last one is hope. Hope is an optimistic state of mind, a belief in a positive outcome. Brené Brown talks about hope in saying that hope is not an emotion, it's a way of thinking and a cognitive process. This is not about being Pollyanna or having a just think positive bumper sticker. It's finding actionable steps towards hope in the future. Individuals who maintain a sense of optimism about the future tend to recover more quickly and have fewer problems following a disaster. Instilling a belief that things can work out with some reasonableness can serve as an antidote to this sense of hopelessness. This should be based in reality, acknowledging that it'll be hard, but we can make it through. Talk about what you are really hopeful for and why. Gratitude can be a great practice to support hope. Your brain cannot be grateful and anxious at the same time. So the more you practice what you're grateful for, the more your brain can be in that more hopeful and grateful state than in the anxious state. Stating 2 things that you're grateful for each day for 21 days has been proven to change your brain and to be more positive. I had a student who kept a gratitude journal, and I worked with her in elementary school. And I happened to see her when I was out at a school in a middle school, and she came up to me and told me, I've been writing in my gratitude journal. I've been talking about 2 things. And one day she told me she was feeling really down and she wasn't able to connect with a friend and she really wasn't finding a healthy activity that would help her. And so she said that she picked up her journal and she started reading all the reasons why she was grateful, large and small. And it really helped her get through the crisis and feel better. And she felt a sense of hope. And so setting goals, planning for the future, and making plans, how will I get there? How can I feel better? How can I be grateful for what's happening? Isn't just fluff and flair. It really is based in science of how we can change our brain to be hopeful and feel like things can get back to normal. A sense of hope can help us all. When to seek help. Sometimes emotions can become bigger than one individual or family can support. These feelings can become overwhelming and be more intense than our everyday feelings. These feelings can occur for a prolonged period of time and change the way we think, feel, and behave. They can impact our daily functioning and impede on what we enjoy in our lives. You know your students best and you know your child. And so you should use your gut and your judgment. But if these are things that are happening for you, then we advise you to seek out your doctor, your mental health provider at the school, your teacher or principal to help you navigate ways to support your child. This fall, we will spend a lot of time connecting and reconnecting with students and talking about how they are feeling. Here are some tips we will share with our educators, and we wanted to share them with you as well. Using these tips can be helpful. Staying calm and asking questions that are open-ended often lead us to better discussions. Often our children bring up what's bothering them at random times, walks, car rides, when you're about to fall asleep. It's up to us to be present and try to be there the best we can. Some potential ways to start a conversation are really talking about, I've noticed that you seem to have a lot on your mind lately. I'd love to talk to you. Or it's okay if you don't want to talk to me, but you could talk to Aaron, who's a trusted adult and a family friend. It seems like you haven't been yourself lately, or you have been feeling down. How are things? These open-ended kinds of questions are really helpful for kids to not feel like they are being backed into a corner. It opens it up for them to have a discussion. I found the car ride and walks are when my kids really unleash what's happening with them. If you think your student is in need of additional support, we have listed a variety of community supports that can provide immediate and ongoing support. Bringing it all together. As you may know, Adams 12 has social emotional learning as one of its main focuses in our strategic plan called Elevate. Psychological first aid practices fit within our larger SEL focus with the 5 SEL competencies. They are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We teach these 5 competencies in each school in a variety of ways, maybe through a curriculum like Second Step or a school-wide approach like Sources of Strength to support the learning of these skills for both students and staff. I think we can all agree that our students are at the center of everything we do. We reached out to some students to find out what they are excited about for the school year and what they need from us. Having student voice is always great to help us to guide our work. Here's what they have to say.
I'm excited to go back to school to see my friends and teachers again. It's a lot more enjoyable to learn in school because if I have a question, my teachers can help me.
I feel excited for the next school year. I'm excited to get to see my friends and classmates again. It will be great to finally be back in the classrooms. It will be nice to be able to ask questions and work with others in person. But most of all, it will be helpful to have the support and stability that are in the classroom environment. To be successful this year, I will need clear instructions and an easy to follow work schedule for my teachers and parents if we have online learning. If we do go into online learning, I would like to have the stability of being in the classroom somehow to make working online just a bit easier. Other than that, I think I would have a very successful year, whether we are in person or not.
I'm nervous about going back to school because my friends might not be there. They might be at home online learning, and then I'll be the kid who doesn't know anyone. The teachers would help by having the kids introducing themselves.
I'm scared to go back to school because I don't want to get COVID. There are people who are against wearing masks, so they may refuse to wear them at school. This will put me at a higher risk. I need my school to help keep me safe by having my fellow classmates and teachers wear masks too.
I'm feeling nervous about returning to school because even though I really want to go, I want to make sure that it is still safe for us. I need my parents and or teachers to check in every once in a while to make sure that we are doing okay.
I'm excited about returning to school this year because I'll be able to meet my teachers in person, and also it will help with grades because the teachers will be able to explain things better in person. I will need support from my parents and teachers because coming to coming to school might be hard depending on the situation and the plan for the school year.
I'm feeling nervous about returning to school because there's so much uncertainty, and I'm taking harder classes this year, causing me to worry about the learning environment I will be experiencing. I need patience, consistency, and a set plan for the incoming school year from my parents and teachers.
I'm feeling excited to go back to school because at my house it's getting pretty boring, and school gives me, in person or online, it gives me something to do. And I need clear communication from the administration and teachers about how next school year is going to work, especially with COVID-19 still going on.
I'm feeling excited about returning back to school because these past few months have been scary and overwhelming at times for everyone. So the most important thing for us students is to get back on track with our learning, whether it be online or in the classroom. And the only thing I really need from my trusted adults, meaning my teachers and my parents, is just to know that they are appreciated for all their hard work to keep us safe. Thank you.
I'm feeling excited about returning to school because I get to further my education that will help determine what my future holds, as well as where I will go for college and what I'll major in. And having that environment, such as in a classroom with friends and teachers who help me in my decisions, makes it easier and less stressful for me. Having that connection with students in person and teachers helps me learn and helps me focus more, and getting to having a question and having it answered just seconds later from a teacher helps me in such a great deal that I don't have to wait in a long period of time while I have all these other problems buzzing around. And so staying close with friends and teachers is something I hope that I need my teachers and my parents to understand.
I'm excited about going back to school because it's a very familiar routine. In these past couple of months, a lot has changed. And school is something that's very normal, and it has been consistent for me since I was little. And though I recognize in the fall school will be anything but normal, the feeling of productivity and the challenge will be the same, as well as the ability to reconnect with friends, read, write, solve math problems, and more, whether or not it be through computer screen. I need from my parents and teachers to know that if we go back in-person learning, that it will be safe for my teachers and peers, and the risk will be manageable and worth the reward. Thank you.
I'm a little bit nervous about returning to school because I don't want to get myself sick, but I also don't want to get anybody else sick. From my teachers and parents, I'm going to need patience and support and understanding, because this is a super scary time.
Now I'm nervous about returning to school because of COVID and the precautions we will have to follow. For instance, wearing a mask all day and not being able to be with our friends in the classroom. Also, if we are exposed, having to be quarantined for 2 weeks. I will need more information on how online or in school will be from my teachers, because there are still a lot of unknowns about COVID. Thank you all for listening. Bye.
Always so great to hear from our kids. Next, we would just want to share with you about our community partners. We have been connecting with many of our community partners, as we typically do, but during this time, we have been afforded opportunities to really meet in the Zoom and Zoom space and really get to connect and talk about the offerings that our different community partners are working on. And so they are offering resources and great webinars, and we will continue to build partnerships with them. We will house these resources on our website to share the many opportunities that they are offering, and we will be partnering with them to build more of these webinars that you're having today. And lastly, we will be sending you a survey to gain your thoughts on how we did. Did we hit the mark? Did you hear what you wanted to hear? And what more do you want to know? What are some other webinars that we can offer, either partnering with Children's Hospital or with Community Reach, where we can offer some supports for you and your families? Thank you so much for attending. We appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great evening.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us.